As Chief of Police, I've got to tell you, I've got great officers that are here today and great officers that are out in the street, and we recognize them as well. But we can't do our job without regular citizens helping us. We truly can't. It's like the old saying from Sir Robert Peel, who said, "The police are the community and the community are the police." And truly the stories you hear today will describe incidents just like that. We've got a really good thing going here in the city of St. Paul. I don't know how many of you know, and there's all sorts of cities in the state of Minnesota and everywhere else in the country, but we have the distinct pleasure to always have our mayor come and help us hand out awards not only for our officers, but most importantly for our citizens. Mayor Coleman is not only a great leader for our city, he's a good boss, I consider him a friend, and he cares very deeply about making sure that our city stays safe and really recognize citizens that do great work. A year ago, we probably should give the mayor Chief's Award as well, because he was involved in a situation just like this himself. Something when he was off duty, just came across an incident while he was going home or coming to work. I'm not sure where he was going, but he himself has been involved with doing different things. We worry about him a little bit. He doesn't always have security with him, but Chris can take care of himself, and he does great work for us. And I just want you to please, let's recognize Mayor Chris Coleman. It's an honor to have him here to help us here today. Okay?
The chief keeps dragging up that incident. Many of you heard that story before. I thought I was being carjacked, okay? I didn't, but it gave me a chance to turn the lights and the sirens on, and my staff hates that, but I had fun with it, and I think we helped out. You know, the great thing about when we talk about our police department and the city and the community spirit, we talk a lot about it in terms of community policing. And community policing is kind of a term of art that often focuses on the strategies that the officers use while they're out on the street, how they engage the community, the level of force that we use, the number of folks that we have walking the streets, et cetera, et cetera. But when I think of community policing, I kind of think of it from the other side of the coin, which is the members of our community and what they do to support the work of the police department. Because even when we have a full complement of 610 officers, even when we have all of our officers doing everything that they need to do, they can't do everything that they need to do by themselves. They can't be in every part of the community. They can't be on every block. They can't be in every apartment building. They can't be at every situation. So if it wasn't for the fact that there were people willing to step up and do some of this work, then the work that our officers do wouldn't be, just simply wouldn't be possible. We often talk about certain aspects of our department, like the K-9 unit, as a force multiplier. You can get so much more out of a certain type of equipment that you use than if you didn't have it, or if you just had the bodies on the street. But the greatest force multiplier that we have are the eyes and the ears and the concern that all of our citizens have, all of our community members have for each other, for their city, and for the well-being of this entire place that we call home. So whether it's a county attorney that has done tremendous work breaking up a burglary ring, a longtime civilian employee who quite frankly knows all the numbers in the police department and has all those in her head, but goes above and beyond the call of duty to create a national model to protect women and children in situations where domestic violence might otherwise claim their lives, to put that blueprint together. Citizens having lunch, citizens hearing an alarm next door to them, citizens that are just simply out for a walk, going across a bridge, that are willing to take the time, that are willing to go the extra mile, that are willing to risk themselves in many situations to help their fellow resident, their fellow citizen, their fellow community member. That's true community policing. It's about what our officers do, what the men and women in blue do, but if you all weren't willing to be part of it, all of you weren't willing to risk yourselves, then community policing would fail. So as the mayor of the city of St. Paul, as a resident, as a father, as a husband, as a person who has lived in this community all my life, I say thank you for all that you do to make our department better, to make our community stronger, and to make this a great place to call home. Thank you very much.
Now the fun part. Can I get Richard Dusterhoff to please come up front? And I should tell you that Rick is one of our county attorneys, actually in charge of the criminal division. And when the mayor talked about not only partnerships but force multipliers, Rick's one of those individuals, highly respected by so many St. Paul police officers for his work. And the Ramsey County Attorney's Office is a great partner with us in making sure that serious felons are taken off the street. And with it, I'll read this citation. In November of 2009, a special task force was created to work on a burglary ring that focused on 2 people. Our department had evidence that they were involved in a number of crimes in the metro area and western Wisconsin. Mr. Dusterhoff was assigned as the attorney to assist us with these cases. As the investigation evolved, it was discovered that these burglaries and assaults involved several counties. Mr. Dusterhoff was instrumental in contacting all the attorneys from the different counties to discuss the cases and possible charges. The investigation concluded in April of 2010 with an incredible 117 people, that's 117, identified as part of the criminal ring. Numerous search warrants, arrests, interviews, and hours of surveillance took place, in addition to collecting an enormous amount of evidence and stolen property. Richard also assisted the task force with his knowledge and guidance by ensuring that all elements of the crimes were met so that the proper charges could be made against all of the suspects. The countless hours that he dedicated to this long-term, complicated investigation and the expertise that he provided to our department are highly commendable. His actions displayed the dedication we admire and are deserving of this recognition. And with that, it gives me great pleasure to award Rich a Chief's Award today.
Thanks. I just wanted to say thank you, Chief and Mayor. This was an example of a lot of different law enforcement agencies working together. I want to thank the investigators in the case, many of who are here today. They worked really well with all these different agencies, and as the Chief said, there were a number of very bad people that were taken off the streets and held responsible for what they did. This was an example of what the Chief and my boss, John Choi, are always talking about, community prosecution, just getting all the different law enforcement agencies to work together towards a common goal, and that's what we did in this case. Thank you.
Could I have Mr. Edwin Daniels please come forward? As an airport shuttle driver for the Crowne Plaza Hotel, Mr. Daniels would frequently visit the Super America on 7th Street and became friends with the cashiers. In May of 2010, a group of males were harassing the cashiers when Mr. Daniels was in the store. He asked them to stop their behavior and leave the store. A week later, Mr. Daniels was inside the Super America talking with the cashier when 2 of the males from the week before returned and demanded he step outside. Mr. Daniels refused. A few minutes later, the 2 returned to the store with 3 others and began beating Mr. Daniels with baseball bats. Mr. Daniels tried to protect himself, but eventually fell to the floor where the suspects continued the beating until he was unconscious. Mr. Daniels suffered a skull fracture, lacerations, and bleeding in the brain. Although some of his wounds have healed, he still has short-term memory loss, headaches, and may have lost his sense of smell and taste permanently. The suspects were found and charged with this horrific seamless assault. In fact, they are still in prison today. Mr. Daniels' simple act of protecting his friends from harassment turned into a nightmare for him and his family. Mr. Daniels' actions displayed moral values and principles that our community needs. Even though he suffered life-changing injuries, he stated he would do the same thing again because their actions were so harmful. Mr. Daniels' courage during this encounter, throughout the investigation, and his recovery has been highly commendable. His actions displayed the dedication we admire and are deserving of this recognition. But I just want to tell you one thing off the script. I had an opportunity to meet Mr. Daniels last year, and even when I heard about this incident, I said, listen, we've got to do something for Mr. Daniels here. We went through kind of a healing ceremony in the western part of the city here about a year ago, but more importantly, what a lot of people don't know is he really did help to keep those clerks in that store safe. He's a very humble individual. He did more than probably what I read in this citation, because those other individuals could very easily assaulted those employees of the Super America store. And with that, it gives me more than great pleasure to offer Mr. Daniels a Chiefs Award today. Let's give him a round of applause.
Well, I don't have a lot of stuff to say, but I don't know who it was. My mom or grandma used to always say, never have a blind eye. She used to say a dumb tongue or a deaf ear. And that means that if someone's doing something, that's not snitching. If you're in my neighborhood, I'm going to tell on you. You selling drugs, I'm telling. I mean, if you committing a crime or something, I'm telling. I'm just letting you know that right now. Don't have a deaf ear, a blind eye, or a dumb tongue, because, I mean, this stuff, anything can happen to anybody. And I mean, when someone moves in your neighborhood and they're doing something wrong, I mean, don't just look at it, because it could be you. That could have been someone's daughter or son or anybody that was in that convenience store or something, working or something. And these guys have been coming in there for months, maybe even years, stealing, doing all this stuff, and then they did not want to leave. And for guys to come back and attack an individual with bats and stuff, one individual and beat a man almost to the inch of his life, I mean, I praise God that I'm still here. And I thank everybody that all the prayers and stuff, the fundraiser you did and everything. Woo! I'm a little emotional. Yeah, that's part of my lobe broken. But I thank everybody and stuff. And I thank the chief, the mayor and stuff for giving me this award.
Incredible stories. Can I have Allie Parento and Mr. John Cole please come up? A little bit of divine intervention with this story because of the location. On September 21st, 2010, Ms. Parento and Mr. John Cole were going to have lunch near the cathedral. Upon arrival in the area, Mr. Cole observed a male approach a parked car, break the passenger window, and remove the items from it. The suspect then jumped into another vehicle and drove off. Mr. Cole immediately called 911 to report this incident while Ms. Parento began following the suspect in her own vehicle. Mr. Cole updated dispatch with their locations through the neighborhood and then onto eastbound 94. The suspect realized he was being followed and took evasive actions to try and elude them. For their safety and the others on the highway, Ms. Parento continued to the next exit when a suspect dangerously cut across traffic and exited onto 10th Street. Ms. Parento drove through downtown near the exit to see if she and Mr. Cole could spot him again. They came upon squads who had quickly apprehended the suspect and were easily able to identify him. The items that he took from the car were returned to the owner, who was visiting, by the way, Minnesota from Colorado and had stopped to see the cathedral. Again, divine intervention. She was more than grateful for our department's quick actions in their efforts to follow the suspect. Their brave but mindful actions and willingness to get involved are commendable. The suspect had a very extensive criminal history, including credit card fraud and theft. Our department had already been trying to solve a crime spree in the Como Park area, and their efforts were what eventually led to his arrest. Their actions displayed their dedication we admire and are deserving of this recognition. It gives me great pleasure to offer both Ms. Parento and Mr. Cole a Chiefs Award. Thank you. Did James McKinley show up by any chance? Is Mr. McKinley here? I'll briefly read the citation and we'll make sure to get the award to Mr. McKinley as he's not here, but I want to make sure everybody hears his story. On December 30th, 2010, Mr. McKinley heard a fire detector sounding in an apartment in his complex. He waited to see if it would stop, and when the sound continued, he went to the apartment and began knocking on the door. No one answered the doors, and the doors were locked. The caretaker arrived with the key, and they made entry. There was heavy smoke and flames coming from the kitchen area. Mr. McKinley quickly grabbed the fire extinguisher from the hallway and went inside the apartment to put out the flames. He yelled out to see if anyone was in the apartment, but no one responded. He and the caretaker then waited for firefighters to arrive. It was later discovered by the firefighters that a 3-year-old child was in the apartment alone and locked in one of the bedrooms. Mr. McKinley's courageous act of entering a burning kitchen to extinguish a fire prevented this child from injury or even death. A definite tragedy was averted as the fire was next to an oven that had the gas turned on. His actions displayed the dedication we admire, and he is highly deserving of this recognition. So let's give Mr. McKinley a round of applause. And again, we'll make sure to get that to him. Could I have Miss Samantha Poppy and Zachary Estes please come up to the front? On April 3rd, 2011, Ms. Samantha Poppy and Mr. Zachary Estes were walking over the Wabasha Bridge when they noticed a female on the other side of the railing, the wrong side. She had her arms wrapped around the railing and appeared to be contemplating suicide. Both Ms. Poppy and Mr. Estes quickly grabbed her arms to prevent her from falling into the fast-flowing river. She was crying to just let her go. However, Ms. Poppy and Mr. Estes stayed with her and held her tight until officers arrived. Once the first officer was on scene, the situation became even more critical when she let her feet off the ledge and was dangling over the water. Both of these citizens and 3 officers held her until medics could assist with pulling her over the railing to safety. She was then transported to Regions for evaluation. Their quick and brave actions undoubtedly saved this distraught individual's life. It is commendable that they did not hesitate to get involved and help someone who was obviously suffering and in need. Their actions display the dedication we admire, and they are deserving of this recognition. But I want to just say one last thing, again off script. Their actions really put their own safety at risk, because when someone wants to end their life or they have going through troubling times, they're already over a railing, they're only holding on to the railing, just for them to hold on to that individual until our officers arrived here, and even with them, and we've recognized those officers already, we still needed paramedics because that individual wanted to continue to jump. That individual is still alive today because of someone that they didn't know and someone who cared enough to put their own safety in jeopardy to save their life. So let's give them a loud round of applause. Could I have Mr. Ryan Johnson please come up? On the evening of June 10th, 2011, Mr. Johnson heard a loud commotion coming from his neighbor's home. He went outside and saw a fight and heard a person yelling to call 911. Mr. Johnson quickly called 911 and reported clear, accurate information regarding a home invasion, a fight in progress, and the fact that there was a firearm involved. The scene was chaotic, and when officers arrived, they were not sure who were the suspects and who were the innocent bystanders. Mr. Johnson fully cooperated with the police when he was detained in a squad and handcuffed until they determined his role as a concerned neighbor. This home invasion and ensuing fight with the presence of a firearm put Mr. Johnson in a very dangerous situation, yet he did not hesitate to intervene and prevent the suspects from harming the persons in the home any further. His quick response and brave actions resulted in the arrest of several individuals and in the recovery of a firearm and stolen property. Mr. Johnson's selflessness and his willingness to assist a neighbor in a terrifying encounter is admirable. His actions display the dedication we admire and are deserving of this recognition, which is going to be a Chiefs Award for Merit. But I want to do one thing. I just wanted to say, Ryan, sorry that we put you in the squad car. Because sometimes we don't know, but thank you so much for what you did, and let's give Ryan a loud round.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's not often I get to call up a real close friend, and this is going to be a civilian employee again from our department, but could I have Miss Amy Brown please come forward? I'll be careful about what I say about Amy because she's a close personal friend, and her husband's Dennis is here, and I don't want him to do anything to me when we get done here. But Dennis is a good friend as well. I've known Amy for a long time, and before I read the citation, I've got to tell you that she's one of the most important glues that helps to keep us together in the St. Paul Police Department. Whenever I need something, all I have to do is go right next door to her office because we share an office suite. Whenever I need history, I go right to Miss Brown. Whenever I need money, I go right to Miss Brown. Sometimes to the mayor, but usually to Miss Brown. And her work.
I go to Amy.
And then you go to Amy. But she's so passionate about this department and for the employees that work here. I can tell her I love her as a friend. She just does great work, and we've had the opportunity to work with each other on numerous occasions. I'll read from the citation. Excuse me. For over 31 years, Ms. Brown has provided the St. Paul Police Department with great dedication and leadership. Most recently, she has worked to secure initiatives and change practices and policies that would assist victims of domestic violence and hold their perpetrators accountable for their actions. She had a principal role in the creation of the St. Paul Blueprint for Safety by securing funding from the state legislature and also assisting with its implementation. Amy also worked on the Flare-Up program, which effectively changed the way our criminal justice system responds to repeat and highly lethal offenders in the domestic violence realm. She also developed and secured resources for the AIMCOP, which stands for African Immigrant Community Outreach Program, Somali Muslim grant, which brings law enforcement and community members together to offer options to the Muslim community to have productive and safer lifestyles. Teamwork with members of our department, city and county attorney's offices, Ramsey County Probation, St. Paul Intervention Project, and many other programs, I could go on and on and on, are synonymous with the work that Amy does each and every day. Her commitment, professionalism, and guidance through the various stages of these programs are highly commendable. She has helped create a better environment and a more promising future for victims of abuse and for diverse members of our community. Her actions display the dedication we admire in our police family and are highly deserving of this recognition. And I've got to tell you, Amy's a very humble person. She probably didn't even want to be up here today because she always gives credit to everybody else. But in this instance, I got her, and we're going to give her a great award that she truly deserves, long overdue today. So let's give Amy a loud round of applause.
Is it good? Thank you, Chief Smith and Mayor Coleman.
Then Chief's right, I have to thank some other people for standing up here this afternoon. I am extremely humbled to receive this award, and I need to acknowledge the work of several others who are equally responsible for the successes of these programs. And I want to say to you citizens heroes also, before I get into my speech, thank you very much for what you did. That I'm humbled by standing up here as you were. First, I want to say to Brett Orrit and Renee Manning, thank you. They helped me fiscally and programmatically manage these grants that we have. And they are two great examples of the really, really excellent St. Paul police employees we have. And Chief Harrington, I don't think, oh, you are, Chief Harrington is here. I want to thank you, Chief, for giving me multiple opportunities to succeed when you were the chief. As a department, we've been extremely good in receiving grant funding and implementing successful programs. I'm just one small part of that program. The ideas for these grants come from many, and the implementation requires an even larger group of people. The AIMCOP program is a national model in how to combat terrorism, and specifically, it is aimed at preventing radicalization of the youth. The basis for this program is the final result of retired Assistant Chief Dennis Jensen's work at the Naval Postgraduate School, and it's actually his thesis was the basis, and then its concepts were embraced and realized by our partners, Shelley Johnson-Klein from St. Paul Intervention, Billy Collins from the YWCA, Mahdi Noor from the Muslim American Society, the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office, and Ray Jefferson from PAL. It's an excellent example of what is possible when a vision on paper takes life and unites with the skills and dedication of our government and community partners. The St. Paul Blueprint for Safety, now also a national model, grew out of our Flare Up partnership and their desire to audit our justice system's response to domestic violence. The goal of the blueprint is to ensure victim safety and perpetrator accountability from 911 to the bench. This project was driven by the commitment of the Mayor's Office, Isaiah, the City Attorney's Office, the St. Paul Intervention Project again, the Police Department, the State Legislature, and Praxis International. In developing and implementing the blueprint, we extended the collaboration to include the County Attorney's Office, probation, corrections, other battered women's programs, the bench, and diverse voices of victims. The result is creating a system response across the nation that ensures all victims receive the very best possible outcome. And in the end, the true success behind each of these programs is because of our police officers and investigators who go out every day where there are no podiums or grant guidelines or funding committees and risk their lives so these ideals can be a reality for every member of our community. I accept this award on behalf of all of those I have mentioned, and I look forward to continued critical work. Thank you. Great.
You know, one of my favorite quotes is by Sir Edmund Burke, who said that the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Now, there's only one thing wrong with Sir Edmund Burke, because he forgot to say good men and good women, because we've heard the stories about good men, good women, ordinary citizens doing extraordinary things, great partners such with the County Attorney's Office and our other partners that are here today. Thank you for making our city the safe place that it is.